missing folks. So back to Access, and we'll open our previous database and continue with the learning how databases work. The basic thing we're doing right now is just building tables and populating them. Then we can go full speed ahead and do what databases are meant to do, is access your data and display it for you and allow you to browse through it. So I'm starting up Access. It remembers my previous projects, and I'm going to go to my AC1 in my section 1. The navigator bar over here, if it happens to be tiny, we need to open that navigation pane, and we'll see we should have an owners table in there. We still have a little bit of work to do on the owners table, and the easiest way to adjust the owners table is right-click Design View. That's the easiest way to get to that and adjust some settings on it. So far, we have all our records set, and in Design View, as I select each field, it shows me the properties down below. Now, I also saw that in Datasheet View up here, but I had to have this open, and I had to click on each column, and I would see some of the values up here. But I like Design View better. I think it focuses just on the structure and not on the data that's in it. So we need to make some changes here, given to us in a little table, that the fields in our table have specific limits on how long they can be. It's called the field size. We would like to set our field sizes to specific values, not the default 255. This prevents us from accidentally having way too much data or names that weren't meant to be so long, and we dropped a book on the keyboard and it started typing a long name. We want to limit the size of our fields. For our little database, it doesn't make a big deal. But you can imagine a database full of, say, 1,000 or millions of names. This field size is basically saying I want to reserve that much space in my table every time somebody is going to enter a new record. And if I'm only need to use a small amount of that space, I'm wasting a lot of space in my database, reserving that much room. So we're going to come back and adjust our field sizes of each of our items in our table. And we'll put this table over to the side here and watch how that's done. Over here underneath owner ID, I see that I want the owner ID length to be 5. How do I do that? With that selected, I see down here in the properties, I change the field size to 5. And now if I go to save my table, watch what happens. I go to save. It says, uh-oh, you have shortened the amount of space allowed in that owner ID. It's giving you a little warning. You may be cutting short some data. That's essentially what that's saying. And I'm going to say, yes, I do trust what I'm doing. I'm saving that. Now, you don't have to save it each time, but you will get that message because you're shortening how much room is in there available for the name. So for both names, we want to shorten that to 50 characters. And because we have data in our table, it'll say, are you sure about that? It won't ask me, am I sure, until I go to save the table. So owner first name, owner last name, set the field size to be 50 for each one. And I can arrow up and down, and I see the field size showing down below in properties. So owner ID is 5. Owner first name, field size of 50. Owner last name, 50. Owner street, that might get longer. Let's see how much room we're leaving for that. Street, we're leaving the street to be full 255 possible. City and state, 50 and 2. So city, click on city, change the field size to 50. And I can then go to state, and we're going to limit the state to the 2-letter abbreviation. So we're going to really limit that one to only 2 characters. They can't type anything but 2 characters. And I'm going to put a little comment in there. 2-letter abbreviation. There's lots of other things. We're going to be exploring some of these other things, like the default value. Like if we know most of our owners are from Utah, I could have the default to be UT. Let's see, postal code, we're going to limit that. Let's see how short. We're going to limit the postal code to 9 characters. So 9, 25, 25, and 50. Okay, 9 characters for the postal code. Select postal code, field size 9. And then home phone, we don't need to have that super long. 25 characters max for each phone number. 25. And email addresses can get long, so we're going to allow that up to 50 characters. But I know some email addresses can even get longer than 50. Maybe let's leave the email at 255, because some emails get pretty long. We'll leave plenty of room for the email. And remember, the whole reason we're limiting the field size, and I can arrow through my items just to see the field size for each one. The reason we're limiting the field size to smaller than the max is because we don't want to waste space in our database, reserving a lot of room when I only need 2 characters. We'll say, okay, let's make sure they can't type any more than 2 characters. Now there's one more thing we want to do here in Design View. The owner ID, we want the caption for the owner ID to be O_ID. O_ID, all caps. And we'll see the effect of that when I switch to Datasheet View. We'll see that the column will show the caption instead of owner space ID. When I go to switch to Datasheet View, it will want to save it on the way to the switch, and will say, uh-oh, save the table. It's going to warn me now. I might lose some data because I've shortened the field size. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I'm fine with that. And now I see how I see in the caption at the top there, OID instead of owner ID? That's because I changed the caption. Now, if you're working with databases, you may find out that viewing in Datasheet View and viewing the table fields, that maybe feel a little friendlier if you're happy with ribbons and navigating all around in this ribbon. See how I can adjust the field size there too. The Design View shows a lot other things, but maybe I only want to see the simple properties like field size. Datasheet View will show you that. And name and caption is hiding up here. If I want to change the name and caption, I can click there. I myself like the Design View because I can see everything at once for each field, all the properties. But you may find, yeah, Datasheet View, I like viewing that way a little better. And I can adjust my default values and my name and caption in there. I find this a little too much clicking. I'd rather just see everything in Design View. But they're equivalent to allow you changing the field size. Notice as I go from column to column, I see my field size changing there as well. And I could have set it using Datasheet View. Remember, the whole point here is we are establishing our tables of data. That's the foundation of databases. And now we're going to go and create another table. The best thing to do when you're working with another table, if we're done with this one, close the table to make sure everything is saved. Structure is saved. I did adjust the column size, so it's going to ask me, yep, save the changes because I adjusted the column size, and I'm going to click yes. I can always open it again and edit my data and close it. It's a table in my database management system. Now it's time to create a new table. So I click create, and I'm going to go right to table design. I'm not going to click create table. I'm going to go click create table design. It pops me right into the designer, where now I can name my fields one at a time. I gotta find my textbook. What happened to my textbook? There it is. I'm going to name the fields one at a time and adjust their settings. So let's go ahead with our first field name is going to be patient ID. Data type, we're going to set that to be short text. It looks in the book, it doesn't look like they set any field size. They're going to go with the default field size of all of these. Let's give that first one a caption. Since the owner ID had a caption OID, let's make this caption P_ID. And don't worry about these other things yet. We'll be dealing with a few of the other properties. We will make patient ID the primary key. So I click on the gray and click on the key. That means when the database is searching for patients, that will be the identifier for the patient. And let's put in the comments, unique identifier for each patient record. Every line of data is a record of information. And the other information we're going to keep track of is the patient name. By default, everything is short text, default length. And I can tab through to the next one. Patient or animal type. Going with the default short text. Breed. And here's a very important field, owner ID. The reason we're making it short text is because in the table that we're going to be referencing, it is also short text. It must be the same data type as the related table. So I'm going to put a little note here. We'll call it a key in the owners table. It actually is the primary key. It's the primary key in the owners table. That's just a comment. I can have misspellings in my comment. It doesn't matter. This is just telling anyone that's looking at my database, this is the relationship. The owner that I'm referring to is the key to the owner in the owners table, the primary key, and it also happens to have the name owner ID. It's good to give it the same name to avoid confusion. It's named owner ID in the owners table. Just to avoid confusion, let's give it the same name here. But remember, it's a reference to the other table. This is why we call them relational databases. They relate one table to another to avoid problems with redundancy, where if I change the patient's owner, I have to change it in multiple places. Here, I say, oh, whatever the owner's ID is, that's my owner. The owner's address, that's over there in the owners table. Now that we've made the fields, given them names, made that patient ID the primary key, I can Control S, save this. And we're going to call this the patients table, patients plural. Now we have two tables in our database. The tables show up over here. But before closing our patients table, let's populate it with our patients. So now we go to Datasheet View, and the main reason for Datasheet View is to add records. Now it's looking very much like an Excel spreadsheet, but with very specific rules. Only a patient ID can go in this column. Every column is reserved for specific information. In our case, the information is all short text, but we have to be very careful, especially with owner ID. All right, let's enter some information. I start clicking on patient ID C-1, capital C-1 is our first patient. And I can tab over. The patient's name is Paws. The animal type is feline. The breed is calico. And the owner ID is O-2. We want to be sure we are referring to an owner that does exist. That's called referential integrity. Right now, I just have to make sure that it's an existing owner. I can tab down to the next row, and this is C-2. The name is Ranger, type canine, and the breed is Labrador. The owner is O-1. And owner 1 has another pet, F-1, named Fluffy, Feline, and Tabby is the breed. And the owner is O-1. If I accidentally type an owner that doesn't exist, I have just made my poor little Tabby have a non-existent owner, and I have inconsistency in my database, and databases are not happy like that. So right now, without any rules established, I have to be careful that I do type an existing owner. And again, I can just, like in a spreadsheet, I can just go edit any cell, which is a field of each record. Every line, every row is a record in my patients table. The PID is the unique identifier of each record. And watch what happens if I try to enter the same ID as another patient. It will say, once I leave that row, uh-oh, you've broken a rule. Here's a scary message. I have to say, okay, I think I can do Control-Z. Let's see if Control-Z will fix it. Let's try Control-Z. Yes, Control-Z will fix my recent changes. Sometimes Control-Z doesn't work as nicely as it does in others, and remember, lots of changes. Some changes you can't undo with a Control-Z. So now I have two tables. I just know in my mind right now the relationship. There are ways that we'll learn that we can tell the database, make sure I never enter a non-existent owner. Those are called database rules. So I can close my patients table, saving the changes because I adjusted my columns, and I can always view my tables whenever I want to view the data in them. The default when I double click on a table is to show me data sheet view with the data currently entered in the table. All right, so now we have two tables we created on our own, and now we would like to bring in more tables, but this time we want to bring them in from another database. They've already been created for us. So rather than create them ourselves, we are now going to import them using the external data tool. But I need to go unzip the extra files that I need for bringing in my external data. So we're going to be getting data from another database, but first I have to go find the data that's been provided for me. And let me make sure I'm going to go all the way over to the files in Populi. And I have the student data files. If you've already downloaded those, they will be in your folder. Let's go check the folders, the files that I already downloaded, over where I had saved them to in my special drive over here. There's my data file folders that I unzipped from before. Browse down into there, student data files. And I need to unzip all the access files now, okay, because we're going to be needing to get module 1. There's a database hiding down in there. So I need to right click, extract all, and it gives me a folder with all the data. I want to browse down into there, and I need to check access module 1 data, and I see there are databases there that I'm going to use. This is the actual one I'm going to be importing data from. So make sure that your data files are all unpacked. Now back to access. Now that we have our data files unpacked from the access compressed folder, now let's go to access and get the data to bring into this database. So external data tab, import and link, we're going to go to new data source. From database, and the type of database is an access database. So external data, new data source, from database, access, And now I need to browse over to where that was extracted to. So I'm going to browse over to now the extra folder that I have been extracting to. There's my student data files. Go down to the student data files there. Access modules now are unpacked. And module 1 data and CMF vets extra tables is what I want to bring in tables from. Support ACCMF. It's a long path to go. As long as you've extracted them properly, you'll be able to Access will be able to see them. Anyone able to find those? Let me know if you're having trouble finding them. This is the trickiest part. Access can't go down and find them inside a zip file. That's why we had to extract them first, or poor little Access can't find them. Once I click on this ACCMF vets extra table, just double click. Now I can see this, that it gives me the choice to link or import. We don't want to link it, we want to bring it right into our database, so we'll do import, and I click OK. Now it gives me a choice of what to import. It shows me 3 tables, and just for exploring, I'm going to see, is there anything else there? No, there's only tables there. I'm going to go ahead and do select all, and OK. So all the tables that I see in that other database, I'm going to just go ahead and say, bring them over to my database. Select all, and OK. Thanks a little bit. I don't need to save my import steps because I only need to do this once. So I click close. And now, lo and behold, I have 3 more tables have now been added to my database. Let's check them out now that they're here. Everyone able to get those imported? Okay. Remember, it was external data. Go get it from a data source, database, browse to it, import. Now, let's just view what we have. The appointments table that was imported has already some appointments. Notice they are referring to existing patients. I'm glad they did that right. They are referring to only existing owners. Oh, but look, they're referencing veterinarians now. But they have appointment date and time and some sort of treatment. Okay, so let's see our veterinarians. Here's our 2 veterinarians with their information. Do you see how the appointments table references the veterinarians table? There's that relationship. There's the relationship to the owners table. And there must be a treatment number. Let's see the treatments cost table. Oh, there's our treatments, the name and the animal type and the cost. So you see the relationships between these tables. We can see that when I'm referring to a treatment, it's a treatment number. And if I look at my design of this table, I could probably see that the treatment is the primary key, but I guess I'd have to see that in design view. Look at that, treatment number is the primary key in that table. So 3 tables imported from that database. I can always go back and browse through those tables. I don't want to change the design, but I can view the design and see that everything in that table, they've gone with the default field size in the veterinary table. Ooh, there's an email address. They even made it possible longer. They gave it a type of long text. The treatment cost table, let's see what the design is there. Ooh, one has a currency data type when referring to the cost of a treatment. Otherwise, short text is the data type there. Let's take a look at the appointments table. Design view. We see that there's a date and time data type for the appointment date and time. Everything else, short text. Oh, look at that. The appointment ID has an automatically numbered appointment ID. That's another way you can let Access determine, as I add appointments, just have it make up a number rather than us having to type it in. So we see 3 more tables added. Now we have a fairly complete working database where we can make appointments for patients and their owners. I can refer to appointments when we come to a particular date, or we want to find appointments coming up. or appointments in the past now. I can find all appointments for a particular patient, and those are the kind of things that databases are great for. As we have hundreds of patients and 20 different veterinarians and multiple appointments per month, this is going to manage all of that information and allow me to print out the schedule for the day, because I've been carefully designed my tables in the storage of the information. Now it's time to build a few extra things as we now explore what we can do now that we have this information in database tables. Remember, the fundamental piece is tables holding information. Now to actually view the information is where we use our other features of Access databases. So now it's time to explore what else we can do with the database. We have the data in the tables. We're going to create a thing we call a query. Now we're going to spending more time on the Create tab. Let's see what we can do on the Create tab. Underneath the Create tab, I can view tables and make more tables. The next thing on the little ribbon is I can make queries, pulling information from those tables that are useful for me. And so we're going to do a query by clicking, first of all, the Query Wizard. We're going to have it help us. Then we're going to learn to do query design on our own. So we're going to start with Query Wizard, and it shows us that we can create queries with multiple choices. We're going to start with this simple Query Wizard. Click OK. And now I get to decide, what do I want to query, or what do I want to retrieve from my table in a particular list of items. In the book, they give us an example. We want to view the owner's information. So let's choose the owner table to query information out of. Click the pull down and choose the owner's table. What I would like to query or list out of the table, also called selecting out of the table, is the owner first name. I double click. The owner last name, their street, their city, and their state, and their postal code. Basically, I'm going to get a list of all my owners and their addresses so I can send them a postcard to remind them of their share information, there's a special deal this month or something. Then I click Next, and I can decide what name to give to the query. I'm going to go with the default name of owner's query, and I click Finish. And now I see information, just what I've asked for, my owner's first and last name, and their address, city, their address, their city, state, and zip code. I can adjust the fields in there to fit nicely. So this query, and I can actually even edit the data. What this basically says is I have a window into the, think of this as a window into the table, into the owner's table of just those particular columns of interest. Since I don't care what their owner ID is, I don't need to query that or list that out of the table. So this is a way of getting just pieces of information from my table. All right, that's called a query, and we're going to be playing a lot with query in Project 2. And now I can save the query just by closing it. It'll ask me, oh, do you want to save it? And I say yes. Once I save it, it will display over here in my navigator. If I want to see what the query found, I can always double click on it, and it shows me the result of that query. We're going to learn query design and learn what all this means. That I am getting information out of the owner's table and displaying it. I can view the design of that query, and this is design view. We're going to learn about this, where we have the owner's table. We're going to view particular columns in the owner's table. That's the information I get when I create the query. And I can close it, and anytime I want to see what the result of that query was, I just double click and I see the results. It's always good to close everything when you're done, or Access will complain when it tries to do something else. We'll say, your data is being viewed by or open. I cannot do this thing you asked me to do. Now, that was the query part. Let's go back to the Create tab, and let's create one of these next things called forms. A form is just a way of exploring the data in a more user-friendly way. And we're going to do the 3-click method of creating a form. And in this class, you don't have to learn how to do form design, but form design lets you customize your forms. Let's just do the 3-click method of creating a form by clicking, where do I want to view the data in? The owner's table. There's one click. The Create tab is open, and I simply click Create me a form, and I click Form, and I get a user-friendly way of viewing one record at a time from the owner's table. To navigate my 2 owners, yeah.
What if no information shows up?
Oh, if no information shows up, let me try this again. Well, first of all, check your owner's table that there is information in your owner's table. Do you see that in your owner's table?
If you have a blank row above your first row.
Oh, if you had a blank row, you can just delete it. If you let's see, if I had a blank row, so yeah, say I started a blank row by accident. Just say I did a O-3. And then I realized I didn't want that there. If I leave that there, it'll stay there as a blank record. If I want to delete that, I can right-click in the gray, delete that empty record. Now go back to creating the form. Create tab. Choose the table I want a form for, and of course I'm going to close the owner's table just because it's good to be neat about that. Clicking form automatically creates the default form. And to navigate through my database, I can click these little navigator down here at the bottom. The little arrow forward takes me to the next record. I go back. This takes me to the very first record. This takes me to the very last record. And the arrow star means take me to the last row so I can enter new data into my table. So this is a user-friendly way of navigating and editing your database records. And someone who has designed the forms can actually make it so you can only change like the postal code and the address. So when we hire some intern or a part-time person to verify phone numbers, we could give them a form that only lets them change phone numbers, and they can see other things but cannot change them. That has to do with the more advanced form design. But if you ever go to a data entry job, very likely they're doing something like a form to make it user-friendly way to enter information into their database. You could even have a picture of your owners, and that would show up if we designed our database to store the picture of our owner or the picture of our pet. That would also show up here, but that's a more advanced feature. But that's the kind of thing that forms are for. User-friendly navigation and viewing and editing of my records in my tables. Because this is a nice form, I can close it and save it. It's okay to give it the same name as the table because it's a form named owners, not a table named owners. And now the form shows down here in my forms. Just for practice, let's create a patient's form. 3 clicks. Patient's form or patient's table that I want to view. Create form. Now I have a form for viewing and navigating through my patients. Because they're so easy to create, sometimes people will not even save it and create it on the fly when they need one. So now I have a patient's form. I could create a form for any table by just clicking once, clicking create, and clicking form. And there's a way to view now all my veterinarians. And the form design isn't always that pretty, but it lets me browse through that particular table. And if I want to save the form, I can just click yes, and now I have a form by default, and it gives it the same name as the table. So 3 clicks to create forms. Very nice. Now, if you go into the Create tab, the next thing we can create in databases are reports. This is where someone wants to see, give me the list, and a beautiful hard copy list of all my veterinarians. Let's see, we're gonna use the report wizard to create a report about our owners. So let's go choose my table that I want to create a report for. I could do a report and get a default report, but in the book they would like us to use the report wizard first and let it guide us through a design of our report. If I want to just do the quick 3-click method, if I click report, it'll give me a default report. Let's just see what it looks like. Kind of a crazy report, ugly. We'll cancel that. We don't need a report. We're going to go ahead. No, I don't need to save that report. Let's create one using Report Wizard. Owners are still selected. Create. Let's do the Report Wizard and get a more customized report. Report Wizard. Since I had the owners table selected, it's assuming, oh, I want something to be reported from the owners table. We would like to select in our report the first name, last name, street, city, zip. Okay, first name, double click. Very much like the query. First name, last name, street, city, state, zip. Yes, PJ.
It's not letting me save my forms.
What's it saying?
So I go here and then I click the exit.
And what's the message say?
It says you do not have exclusive access to the database. Your design changes cannot be saved at this time. You want to close without saving your changes.
Are all your other tables closed?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the database open twice, do you? When it says exclusive access to the database, it's acting like you have it open twice.
Oh, yep. I had it open twice. Right.
You'd think it would say, sorry, I'm not going to open it again, but that's a weird thing about access. Now it should be all happy for you. Make sure you close one of them. Are you good?
What?
Does it keep opening it?
Maybe close both of them and then come back to just one. I've seen sometimes if Access will get an error thinking it's open somewhere else, it may mess up until you close everything and then reopen the one year. It should be happy now. Doing better? Okay. So, we're doing a report very much like the wizard in creating the query. We're telling it in our report, here's what I want displayed in my report coming from the owners table. Make sure I'm getting everything. Yeah, city, state. Oh, they didn't get the postal code. I can do the arrow back to the left since I didn't want the postal code. I only wanted to go down to state. And now I can click next, and I can decide any grouping, such as do I want to group them by state and have the owners listed by state. We're going to not do any sort of grouping, so I'm going to click next. We are not going to be doing any sort of sorting. We could sort by last name and say, oh, I want to sort by last name. We're going to leave it as, no, we're just going to display the information in the order that it's in the table. But the report does give you the chance if you want to sort the information. And then the next page, I can decide what style of report I want. I can choose, let's see, we're going to choose tabular or columnar or justified. Or portrait or landscape. Did I choose? It's not giving me the same display. Did I miss something there? Oh, we did group them by state. Sorry, we did group them by state. I missed that part. We did want to group them by state. Go back and group them by state. There we go. State grouping level. Now we go owner state. That was why it wasn't showing the same. We did want to group them by state. Now when I click next, no sorting. Now I get a slightly different choice here in the layout. Stepped is what I want to have, and portrait. So I forgot that I wanted to group it by state, and then because I'm grouping it by state, it will give me a different choice of what my layout is. My state will be listed here, and then under each state it will be indented. That's what they mean by stepped layout. Now I click next. Gonna give it the same name. Oh, they asked it to be owner states. Since it's grouped by states, we changed the name to owner states. We could say owner grouped by states. Owner states is the report name. And now let's see what the report looks like. Make sure I've got the settings as requested. I'm going to preview the report and finish. Now I have my two owners grouped by state, and then stepped view each state with a separate grouping. Since I didn't do any sorting, if I had multiple owners within Colorado, they would just come in the order that they were in the table. So it's a pretty boring report right now with only two owners. But as I have more owners coming to my veterinary, you can imagine this owners grouped by state will be a little more interesting report. So I can save this, but when I close it, it will ask me, do I want to save it? Actually, since I didn't make any changes, it was happy with how it created. If I want to see it again, just double click, and I can view my report. Now, in the advanced section, we can go and look at design view of reports, but that's for the advanced class. For us, we're letting the wizard or just the 3-click method generate reports. Let's show you the 3-click method of a report. Say I want to report on all my patients. I click patients, I click create, and I click report. And it'll give me the default report for patients. It's not a terribly pretty report. In landscape format, stretch all the way across 2 pages, a lot of wasted space. I can adjust my report after it gives me the preview of it by adjusting my column. If I get in the right place there, right there, I can adjust my column widths after it's given me a report, just to get it to fit on 1 page. So it gives me some adjustment. And now I have a little better looking report, except it wants to take up 2 pages because that big box across the top wants to stretch across the top. But I can edit things and adjust things, but we don't have to do that for us. We are just going to let it generate with the 3 clicks. So even if it's ugly, we'll just go with a 3-click method. We'll leave it to the advanced class to figure out how to design reports. In this class, forms and reports, we're just using either the wizard or the 3-click. Say I want a form. We have multiple forms. Say I want to report on all the treatment costs. Click treatment costs, click create, click report. That's the easy way of just getting a report of my treatment costs. You're welcome to explore designing and messing with the layout. The print preview or report view shows me how it would look on a printout. Print preview lets me see exactly how it would fit on a page. And then I could decide I could print it to a hard copy. But don't go ahead, you don't need to print it. If I did print it, I would probably print it to a PDF. So reports, report the information usually intended for hard copy. Forms are usually for viewing the data in a user-friendly way, 1 record at a time. And let's see if there's anything else to do with this database before we're done. I think that's it. The database, now that we're done with it, we want to be sure to close access to make sure it's cleaned up, done all the cleanup, and the file is ready for upload. If you're not sure where it is, you can go to File Options or Info, File Info, And you can verify where your file is being saved to, so you know where it is when you want to go upload it to Populi. So I go ahead and close this, and now I can upload to Populi, and we're done with Database Project 1. I'm going to close access, ready for upload to Populi. If you ever want to come back to it, you can always come back and find it with I'm viewing suffixes. If you're not viewing extensions, you will see, let's see, view options. Where's my view option? View. I usually choose to show extensions. Most of the time, you're probably not seeing the extensions of your file. You just see it's a cs1 file. I like to view my extensions because I like to be reminded of how Windows names them. That's how Windows knows what kind of file it should be based on the extension. So in my options, I like to show, or not hide the extensions. And that's the file ready to upload. Be sure access is closed, because if you don't close access, it's easy to be confused by a little extra file that will be sitting around. When you have it open, there's another file, a lock file that shows up just to confuse you. That is not the file you want to upload. You want to upload the ACC, the access file, not the one with the little lock on it. Occasionally I'll get accidentally sent the locked file. And the reason it's there because you forgot to close access before uploading your file. Closing access will hide that locked file, or will remove that locked file. Once you have that uploaded, you are done for today. Have a wonderful day. This has been recorded for your viewing pleasure.